Welcome to online instruction at TCC. My name is Bradley Borougerdi. I want to use this opportunity to just kind of introduce myself, give you an idea of what you're getting yourself into, um, what my perspective on history is, how I came to become a historian, and just a general introduction. I think it's important for you to know who you're learning from and for us to get to know each other in order to maximize the benefit of college for you. So, a general idea. I have been in school in some form or another as a college student for about 14 years under my belt. In 2014, I graduated finally with my PhD, so I'm technically Dr. Bradley Borougerdi. I got my PhD from the University of Texas at Arlington in transatlantic history. Before that, I got a master's degree in world history from UTA, and before that, I got two bachelor's degrees, one in philosophy and one in history. I graduated high school in 1999, and at that time, I really was not interested. I was not a scholar, really. I hadn't even read a book from cover to cover my entire life until I graduated high school. I had no idea really what I was going to do. I just sort of enrolled in the community college because it was cheap, and I was convinced by my father to do so. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was passionate about football and basketball. I didn't get a scholarship or anything like that, so I was kind of bummed out. Didn't even really want to go to school, honestly. Took a philosophy class at the community college. Found some interest. I was a decent student. A's, B's, a couple C's here and there. But it wasn't until I transferred from the community college to UTA and enrolled in Western civilization class, Russian history class, all these different courses where I didn't learn any of this stuff before, and it just opened my mind to so many different things that I had no idea I could be passionate about. Um, and from then on, I just kept studying and kept going and kept learning. I adapted. I became a better student. I put in the work to increase my knowledge, to increase my skills, which is very important, right? Honing your skills as a college student is something I want to mention and discuss with you over the course of this semester. I think starting with a proper mindset of convincing yourself that you're capable of doing things that you may not have done before, um, dedicating yourself to put the work in order to get the return on the investment that you're putting in, which is what this is. This college course is an investment for you. Um, I want to spend some time in this introduction, but also over the course in sort of explaining to you how to be a successful college student, right? In fact, I would say the goals I have for you as my student in this semester are threefold. One of them is to learn some history about the topics that we're covering, about the section of the course that you're in. If you're in Texas history, learn some history about Texas. If it's U.S. history, learn some history about the United States. World history, learn some history about the United States. So historical content, we could say, that's one goal of this course, is to give you some historical content to marinate, understand, think about. But also, the second goal is to teach you what a historian is, what history is, as a subject, as a field of study, as an approach, as a way of looking at the world, as a way of learning from the world. This really kind of falls under the philosophy of history. It's more abstract. We tell you how history operates, what makes it function, how do people's memories influence history, how does perspective and interpretation of sources influence history. So it's kind of really introducing you to the subject or field of study of history and what historians do, right? Writing books, writing articles, writing historiographical accounts, um, taking different approaches, um, types of history, uh, various sources that historians use to construct the past. These are all topics under that second goal I have for you, which is to teach you about history and what history is. So you got historical content in the course that you're taking. You got history as a field to discuss and understand and see the value in. But also, number three, my goal would be, as I've mentioned already, to help cultivate those skills that you will need as a college student to be successful. Okay. Um, I am, in many ways, a perfect candidate to explain to you how to be successful in college because I started out as somebody who was not a successful student and I became the or obtain the degree that represents the most success as a student, right? And I was also a community college student myself. So I sort of kind of, over time learned the skills that I needed to transition my success towards academics. And what I've found is that you can be passionate about things that you may not have thought you ever could have valued if you approach it from the proper perspective. For example, if you take this class as if this is what you need to be successful in life, this is the class that is required of you to be successful, meaning convince yourself you're going to be a historian and tell yourself that I have to have this course as a requirement to be a historian. Not just for this class, but same thing when you walk into your math class. Convince yourself, I need this class. I'm going to be a mathematician, and I won't be able to without this course. Now, convincing yourself is oftentimes very difficult. Just saying something is not enough. You got to buy into it, right? And that sometimes is difficult. Surrounding yourself around people uh, who help reinforce these beliefs and encourage you oftentimes really helps convincing yourself. Mentorship, finding good mentors who can help kind of uh, work with you. That'll sort of make it a much easier process to go about doing. But you have to convince yourself. Coming into class, oh man, I have to take history, just to check off this box in this course just to get my degree. I don't understand. Why do I have to take history if I want to be an accountant? It makes no sense. What is this? It's not fair. And you're already starting with a bad mindset, right? Watch Amy Cuddy's videos on YouTube about the Wonder Woman stance, where she discusses her research in how people's posturing of their own bodies ends up making them become either more confident or less confident in themselves, and they actually perform better or worse depending on their body language, right? This is what I mean. Don't approach this course in these negative ways. Look at it as if it's fun. Look at it as there is value to gain. Convince yourself of that. Tell yourself that regularly. And over time, we notice what happens is you begin to believe it, right? You heard of this phrase, fake it till you make it. Um, the reason I believe that's an important phrase is because I think the more you do something and the more you tell yourself that you're going to do something, the more likely you are to do it. This is why prayer works a lot of times for people. People are thinking about something; it's on your mind. You're focusing it, right? And so I want to start by telling you how to start by this with this passion and for the subject that you're taking, and you will develop one, right? I didn't like history. I was taught by football coaches, just kind of passed through the system until I had someone who was really passionate about history teaching me, right? Some of my mentors, some of my college professors at UTA shocked me by the way they approached the past, the things that they investigated about the past. I started to realize that history is not just a collection of facts that you need to regurgitate and spit out on an exam, but more like a developmental process that's open to debate and interpretation. Um, it is something that we, as historians, can focus on the things that interest us, right? There's a history of everything, and when you take survey courses in secondary school that just give you what the state declares are the most important parts of history in a very dry, factual basis, then you end up developing negative associations with the subject and start thinking that it's boring and not worth your time, right? So I want you to abandon that philosophy. I want you to understand that history can be very powerful. It can be very passionate. It can be very interesting. And I discovered that interest over the course of my academic career. And I hope that you discover it as well. Everybody has interests and passions, and I'm not trying to say you're all going to end up becoming historians, um, but at least you can cultivate a interest and an understanding for why history is valuable. And that's one of my big goals for you. So as an interest, again, I'm what we call a cultural historian. There's all these different types of historians and different types of history that you'll learn about in Unit 1 in this course. Uh, but I am a cultural historian, which means I focus on cultural aspects of the past, right? I focus on commodities and how people use commodities and how the way societies use commodities end up investing those things with meaning, and how people's lived experiences in society surrounding commodities helps construct meaning of the past, right? So like in my world history class, for example, it's a commodity approach. We study the world through the lens of these commodities, right? You'll hear me use this term cultural lens, which is something I think we all have that influences the way we see the world, that colors the world for us, right? Um, a commodities approach to world history would be like we're starting with the commodity. We're telling world history through the commodities, right? And my dissertation as a PhD student was on the hemp plant, which after I got my degree, I spent more time researching and turned it into a book um, that focuses on cannabis, which is a very um, interesting commodity that different cultures have used for drastically different purposes, right? Europeans used cannabis purely for rope, for fiber, for oil. They had no idea of it and any psychoactive properties for hundreds of years until they encountered a different variety of it in Asia and Africa, which influenced the way they then saw the plant, right? And the way they began to think about the plant changed over the course of these encounters. That's a prime example of what cultural historians do. We look at commodities and see how they develop significance within societies. There are social historians who look at how societies form or how societies function. There are economic historians who focus primarily on the money and or the economic aspects of a society or a system. Political historians who love to look purely at the political dynamics of governments, or a military historian who likes purely to focus on wars and battles and what allowed this power to win and that power not to win, or whatever the case may be, right? Or all these different types of history that historians gravitate towards based off of the interests that they have in life. And this gets us to another introductory point about this course, which is bias interpretation. We all have biases that I think we have to understand and try to be aware of. A good historian tries to mitigate their own biases and open up interpretation or see views and perspectives from multiple positions. But we can never fully escape our bias, right? Our interests um, heavily tailor what we decide to focus our attention on. Um, and that is something that has influenced history for years to come. So anyway, I think it's been about 15 minutes. I don't want to make any videos too long for you to grasp, but I'm sure I'll make a few more of these. We'll see each other more often in this route. But know that in this online school that you're in, you have the ability to email me, to uh, speak to me. I want you to open up dialogue and make sure that we can communicate with each other, because there's a lot more reading and there's a lot more time that you have to invest in front of a computer when you're taking online instruction as opposed to in-person, face-to-face. So welcome to the course, whether you're here because of a unforeseen circumstances brought you into online, or whether you're here because you intentionally wanted online instruction. I'm glad to have you, and I look forward to being your history professor over the course of this semester. Thank you.